Alright, leaving the Econo Lodge to go get dinner. My buddy Chris is Diamond. So I think we're doing his like $100 celebration extravaganza dinner thing. Something like that. I might play cash afterwards, I'm not sure yet. Wow, look at that view. No, not Harrah's. That view. I'm meeting Chris for sushi, but first I gotta take in this view. And this is a nice change of pace actually, because my room was really hot and it's a smoking room, I think I mentioned that. But it's nice and cool up here and there's this great view. Why don't I just show you a little closer view. These are the times that I really wish that I had that Mavic Pro, that beautiful drone. Chris, not the one that's here, but the one who you saw in Vegas, thinks I'm a little bit obsessed, and he might be right. I just think they're really fun, and I guess you could say semi-blossoming, it's a weird word, the up-and-coming cinematographer in me, the part of me that really likes making videos that aren't just poker, just likes the idea of using drone footage, finding cool shots, and it's something I should do more of, even just not with the drone. And I've managed to find all kinds of excuses. Just found excuses not to do it. Don't have time, don't have energy, whatever. Just can't get over that view.
Meal that we're out of since I've been here.
I had trouble.
And I miss
Do you want to be in my vlog?
Huh?
Do you want to be in my vlog?
Oh no.
Oh no.
North Carolina, Tennessee kind of guy, I don't know.
Are those all the same things now? I don't know.
Right.
Alright, so it's now, what is it, like 11? We're finally going to play poker. Sick. I'm gonna try to win and everything. I'm gonna try. Didn't say I would succeed. Didn't do it. It sure was.
I had a wheel. I have to see it. Yeah.
12.
After that,
Free? Is this gonna be like a recurring thing? Am I gonna have to leave?
10.
yeah, I mean,
No, it isn't.
You can put it on a roast and
Yep.
been breading.
Do I look like I'm here to prepare a roast? I said, do I look like I'm here to prepare a roast?
Well, you have the mustard to do it.
That's true, you know? This guy.
We met 14 years ago.
Probably. No. What's going on? Are we heads up?
Yeah.
Check. 30.
No, I'm a terrible PLO sober player. Drunk PLO, fantastic.
Do you guys play PLO sober?
I'm actually pretty sure I played with you at Harrah's 2-5 PLO like 5 o'clock in the morning, blackout drunk.
When?
We played like four-handed.
No, when, like, time period?
A year ago? You were clean shaved.
I wasn't here a year ago, I don't think.
Oh, what is your name?
It's Matt.
Well, he was blacked out.
I thought it was me.
This is only literally my second time in Atlantic City.
Oh, okay. So
I don't think so.
Okay, well.
Are you blacked out right now?
Not yet. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how quick these drinks get here.
Jack.
Alright, so I can't do hand reviews right now here. It's too loud. I'll do them later when I get back. But the session is getting good. The table's really loosening up. The session turned around. It started out so boring, so slow, but I stuck with it. It's like 4 a.m. now, 4:30. Get back to it soon.
The only thing that's amazing when someone's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I fucking hate you. I fucking hate you for saying I'm sorry. Because you're not sorry. You won't every second.
Harrah's 1-2, it's a 100 to 500 max buy-in. And so I think I was in for 400 because nobody else was really in for more than that. Yeah, I mean, this turns into one of those kind of crazy late night games. A lot of talking, a lot of drinking. So in this first hand, there's a limp. The button makes it $10. The small blind calls. I am in the big blind with red kings, and I make it 40 to go. The button calls, and we go heads up to a flop. Flop is 10-7-4 two-tone. I bet $65, and he just folds. Not too exciting. Next hand, middle position raises to 5. I have ace queen of clubs in the cutoff, and I bump it up to 20. I was kind of trying to get heads up, but unfortunately we end up going multiple ways to the flop. The button, the big blind, and middle position all call. Flop's 8-5-3, and it checks to me. Normally I would probably check this board, but because it's rainbow and I'm in position, I felt like I could get away with c-betting and planning to barrel some good runouts. I bet 55, and the button makes it 150. Folds around to me. I obviously can't call. I let it go. And he shows me aces. So kind of weird that he didn't re-raise, but at least he showed me, I guess. This is dying. All right, so that camera just died, so I'm gonna let that charge and do the rest on my phone. But yeah, so we just lost that hand with ace queen to aces. In this next hand, the button limps. The small blind makes it 5. And I go ahead and make it 15 in the big blind with ace jack. The button folds and the small blind calls, so we go heads up to a flop. Flop is king 10-3 with 2 hearts. Small blind checks, I bet 20, and he snap calls. Turn is the jack of diamonds. He checks, and I decide to check it back. I think I have some showdown value, but I definitely can't get value against his range. Just gonna try to see a cheap showdown here. The river is an offsuit ace, and he ends up betting 50. Kind of annoying spot. I don't think I really beat enough hands to call here, and he has a ton of queen X potentially in his range. I just go ahead and let it go, and he shows me queen jack. Oh well. This next hand, there's 4 limps. I'm in the small blind with queen 10 offsuit, and I complete. Big blind checks, and we go 6 ways to the flop. The flop's pretty good for us. Unless somebody's getting pretty cagey with pocket queens, we flop the nuts. It's queen 10-10. I check. Under the gun bets 8 and gets 3 calls. Now, I guess you could make a case for just calling here and trying to play it very slow, but I just kind of figured the way I'm going to get value from this hand is by either getting worse 10 to pay off, or just getting superhero down by a queen. So I go ahead and make it 40. Folds around to the button, and I am starting to get pretty worried that I made it too big, but the button calls. So that's pretty good news. The turn is another 10. So he's definitely not calling us with the 10. And now if he does have a queen, it's a boat. So it's interesting because against some players, I feel like this is a bad card because they will be willing to put us on quads a lot. But against some players, the 10 is actually a perfect card against a queen because now he has a boat. He'll just think we have lots of chops possibly. Even though I'm probably never check raising a bear queen on this flop, lots of people will see their boat and just not get rid of it. So I go ahead and bet 65, and he snap calls with about 75 behind. So it's looking pretty good for us. The river is an offsuit 9. I obviously shove. He calls pretty much instantly again, and my hand is good. He doesn't show, but it seems pretty likely he had a queen. In this hand, early position raises to $7. There's 2 callers. I call in the small blind with king jack offsuit, and the big blind also calls. So we go 5 ways to a flop, which is 10, 9, 8 rainbow. So we flop open-ended, and if we hit the top end of it, we'll have 6 cards straight, I guess. Checks to the pre-flop raiser, who bets $22. Folds to the button, who calls. I make the call as well, and we're going 3 ways to a turn. Turn's the best card. It's an offsuit queen. I check. The pre-flop raiser now checks, and the button, he bets 13. I don't really know why he's sizing it this way, but I feel like he could conceivably do this with a jack or a 2-pair type hand or a set that he just doesn't know what to do with. I think they normally would check back some kind of a non-straight hand, but because he's betting so small, it's kind of almost a check anyway. So I decided to bump it up, try to get some value. I make it 55, folds around to the button, and he calls. The river is a 9, which is a kind of confusing card. If he was holding on with 2-pair or a set, he now beats me, unless it was specifically 10-8 or queen 10, something like that. But I think there is still enough jack X in his range that he will not fold to a reasonable size bet, so we really have to go for value here. So I just go ahead and sort of go biggish, thinking that someone won't really be capable of folding a straight here. And I make it 135. He does end up calling, and my hand is good. In this next hand, early position raises to $10. The cutoff calls, and I call on the button with king queen offsuit. Big blind calls, so we go 4 ways to a flop. Flop is jack 10-6. 2-tone, and it actually checks to me, which I think is pretty good news. The big blind could have us beat, but, well, actually, anyone really could still have a hand better than ours right now, but the fact that pre-flop raiser checked means he shouldn't be super strong, and the player after him checked, so he shouldn't be that strong either. The big blind could still have something like top pair, but I am going to bet here and just try to take it down. I bet 30, and the big blind and the cutoff both call, so everyone who's not the pre-flop raiser is still in this hand. The turn is the ace of hearts, so we turn the nuts straight again, and it checks to me. I think it's going to be kind of hard for me to get a lot of value, but, this table's been playing kind of wild. I have the nuts, definitely going to put some money in here, try to get called. I make it 110, which is pretty big. I do kind of think I should have gone a little bit smaller, but the big blind ends up calling, and the cutoff actually jams for 187 total. And this is actually the other reason that I should have gone smaller. Because he only has 187 and I bet 110 and his raise is only $77 more, I can't actually re-raise over the top. So this is a very wet board. Sets and 2 pairs are possible from the big blind, so I would love to put in at least like a small raise. But because the action is closed, I can't do it. If I bet like 90 and he raised for 97, then I could have re-raised again. But as it is, I decided to just call because I'm obviously not folding the nuts, and the big blind also calls. So river comes, we're looking for a offsuit small card if we can, and we get it. It's a 6 of spades. Big blind obviously checks to me, and I have a kind of weird decision. I feel like the big blind's range at this point is kind of face up as a non-straight hand that had equity to catch up between the turn and the river. Something like 2 pair or a set, and 2 pair a little more likely. I think ace jack and ace 10 are more likely than like a set of 10s. And the thing is, the pot's so big that I just jammed, but I think it's a pretty big mistake. Even though I ended up betting under 2/3 pot, it's 400 into like almost 700. It seems like I should be betting like tiny, like probably half that amount, maybe 200 or like 190, 180, just because it's so much easier for him to click call when it's just a smaller amount. And I think my hand is pretty face up if I bet anything as being basically a straight. And so I'd rather be face up and give him the maximum room to call than like give him the maximum reason to fold, basically. So I jam. He still tanks, but he does end up folding ace jack. and the other player, I think he said something to the effect of an ace is good. So I think he must have like called it off with queen jack, like just put the money in with queen jack or something. Maybe he had a flush draw to go along with a pair on the board. I don't really know. He kind of started to play worse as the night went on. I'm not really sure if he got tired or tilted or what, but it was definitely kind of a punt on his part. So I got pretty lucky to get as much action as I did, in my opinion, and I definitely should have bet smaller in the river. But we scoop a nice one there.
And I'm like, you know something? You feel great, and you're laughing in your head. Yeah, just doubled up. But if you're
in this hand, there's a straddle to $4. I am in the hijack, and I make it 15 to go with ace queen offsuit. The button and the straddle are both call, and we go 3 rows to a flop. The flop's ace 6-3 two-tone. I go ahead and c-bet 30, and the straddler is the only caller. The turn's a 6 of diamonds, which is a pretty good card, just because it's a lot harder for him to really have anything that ever beats us. He can have ace 6 maybe if he slow played it, but he can't. It's a lot harder for him to have pocket sixes, hard for him to have 6-3 suited, stuff like that. So I c-bet $75 and he calls. The river is the 7 of diamonds, which I don't really expect to change much all that often. He checks and there's only about 165 behind effective, so I just go for the jam. Unfortunately, we get snap called by pocket threes. But I still think the jam is okay. It's sort of unfortunate that it's this exact run out, because when he does pair the board on the turn, it makes it less likely he's gonna check raise this exact hand and announce his hand strength. But that's okay. Ended up, booking a pretty good win. Had an interesting conversation with one of the players after he was sort of getting treated not the best by the rest of the table, in my opinion. The table agreed to straddle at a certain point in the night. It went very late, and he agreed to that. And then the rest of the table wanted to do a thing where we were showing one card when we win. I agreed to it because I think it's fun. I think it tends to make for just a more energetic, more engaged table atmosphere, which I think is usually conducive to gambling a little bit more. And I tend to go with the flow with these kinds of things. But he said in the beginning he didn't want to do that. But for me personally, I do think when those things happen, I'm usually going to show. I think that I gain more by just being a friendly face in the game than I lose by kind of showing one card when I win. Well, we did it. We booked the win. It's definitely morning, as you can probably see. What time did I even start playing? I went to dinner at like 7 o'clock, and then somehow we didn't get in a game until like 11. Pretty sure it's after 9 a.m. Let me just check. It's 8:56 a.m., so may as well be. And I'm about to go back to my shitty motel, where I will try to nap for 5 or 6 hours. And I'll wake up, try to get something done with like the vlog or maybe with work if I'm feeling really productive. But I just gotta give a quick shout out. There's a guy who I was playing with for several hours, and he thought that he'd played with me before. He thought he played PLO with me before, like last year. He was incorrect, but it turns out he had at least like seen the vlog. It was a few hours later before he even really realized that. And then he had this epiphany while on a cigarette break. His name is Jason. So shout out to Jason. He blew my cover, as it were. And after that, I was known as YouTube on the table. So thanks for that nickname. But it was a lot of fun. Not gonna remember everybody's names, but Jason was the one who blew my cover. Played with Miles, played with I think a it was either Robbie or Bobby. I want to say Bobby. I also played with a Neil, and then there's definitely a couple other players whose names I either didn't get or didn't remember. So shout out to those guys. Had a blast playing with them. It got a little bit rowdy toward the end of the night. Tempers got a little bit high between Miles, who didn't want to do some of the shenanigans that were starting to happen. The drinks were flowing. I was not participating. Multiple players ended up getting ejected, so even though Miles was kind of the center of it because he didn't want to participate in like showing a card when he won, but he would straddle, and people kind of had a problem with him not wanting to show a card when other people were showing cards. And it seemed like the floor then kind of didn't really know what to do. It was a rowdy table because people were drinking, but it was primarily a positive atmosphere. There were a couple confrontations, but aside from that, it was very positive. And the floor kind of, I think, just didn't know how to handle it. They'd rather just like play it safe basically and not worry about it. Just get people out of the game if it might be loud or causing a problem. So they ended up like kicking like 3 people off our table, and we were the last table running in the room. And eventually it died down. Game got calm, and it got a little bit more boring, and I just didn't think the game was as good anymore, so ended up getting out of there. But we won. We got him. In for 500, out for 985. So a much needed win of 485 for the vlog, and now some much needed sleep for me. Let's go.